You can make anything tie. Like if you believe it, if you go in with a theory, you can figure out a way to say like, oh, this theory is right because of these random things.
Hello, clowns.
I'm Ami.
I'm Yu Chen, and we're the hosts of Clown Vibes Podcast.
We're just two best friends who get together to laugh and discuss a variety of topics.
From all things pop culture to navigating through adulthood as Asian Americans and more, with our very own clownspin, of course.
We're so glad to have you here to clown around with us, and we really hope you enjoy the episode.
Hey, clowns. It's time for another episode of Clown Vibes, because the vibes are always clownish. It doesn't stop. There's always something to talk about.
Without fail, there's a clown moment of every day. And if there's not a clown moment in your life, then it's just not funny.
It's not funny. You're bored.
You need a little clown in your life.
What have you been up to lately? I feel like we haven't done like a life update in a really long time.
Man, I don't even know what I've been up to lately, honestly.
You've been traveling.
Oh yeah, I have been traveling. I went to LA. Of course, I went to LA the one weekend. It was like raining, hailing, snowing, God knows what was happening. Then I went to Cincinnati to visit family. What have you been up to?
Absolutely nothing, because it's been raining as well. I have an update on I don't know if I announced it on the pod, but I've been trying to train for a 10K. And previous to that, I've been like wanting to run more. And I finally hit my 4 mile peak. That's like the longest that I've ran.
Yeah.
But the thing is that every time that I try to run longer, I'm either like hitting the emergency brake or like the treadmill stops randomly, because like whenever you press start or whatever, it has like a set program that it makes you run. I'm just like, can we just not?
You can change that.
The treadmill, like it can't just be like just go. Like I have to set like a time thing or something. Like it doesn't make any sense to me.
I think it's like for safety reasons.
Anyways, I am now at the point where I realize why I don't run a lot, and it's because it makes me hungry all the time. And so I'm eating all the fucking time. But then I'm eating more, so I'm like, oh, I need to be working out more. So it's just a never-ending cycle for me right now.
Yeah.
And now I'm hungry and tired too at the same time.
Always. I've actually been really freaking hungry too lately, and I don't know why. Like I never really wake up and think I'm starving. And every day I wake up and think I'm starving these days.
Exactly. We also have a special guest joining our call today. It's Phoebe Pat, who once again needs a finger stuck up her ass to release her anal glands.
That's really what I've been up to, is monitoring Phoebe at all times, because she's been acting like a little psycho and we don't know what's wrong.
We have no idea.
No idea. She woke up in the middle of the night, did God knows what for hours before finally went back to sleep.
Daylight savings just doesn't suit her. I think she's still adjusting.
Yeah. Who knows? But on to vet visit again today, and we'll see what the diagnosis is today. Have you seen the pop culture news? Well, there's actually been so much.
There's so many.
But one of my favorite ones, which is that Avril is dating Tyga.
Is this rumor or confirmed?
Confirmed dating. Like it's been picked up by a lot of places. I want to say like People or Us Weekly picked it up. So it's confirmed.
Okay. Tell me everything, because that's like the only thing that I saw. And I was just like, when I saw it, I was like, I don't want to see this, or I'm confused. But I knew you had the deets. So hit me with the details.
The reason this is so crazy is because they're so connected through the celebrity web. Tyga used to be and still is like tangentially involved with the Kardashians, because he dated Kylie, the youngest Kardashian Jenner. And he also has a child with Blac Chyna, who has a child with Rob Kardashian. And Avril is also connected to the Kardashian Jenners because she was in a very long time serious relationship with Brody Jenner. She even went to Kim K's wedding to Chris Humphries. That's how serious they were. So she's tied to Brody, who's like obviously half siblings and like step siblings with the Kardashians, and the web gets like even crazier. We need to just straight up do a celeb web episode because I feel like everyone in Hollywood is somehow tied back to David Foster, and it's pretty wild.
Everyone can be traced back to David Foster, which is wild. I'm like, am I somehow fourth degree removed from David Foster and in turn the Kardashians?
Yeah, we definitely are somehow.
I don't think I can trace my ancestry back like past my grandparents, but I feel like I can definitely trace my connections back to the Kardashians.
Well, you can trace your connection to Meghan Markle, so I think Meghan Markle
Yeah,
somehow down the line is 100% connected to David Foster.
connected. Yeah. All right. Speaking of Avril, did you know that I used to be the biggest fan of Avril Lavigne back in like her Let Go era, like 2004, 2005? I was in
I
the
didn't know that.
daycare at the time in elementary school, and the girls were just all obsessed with Avril Lavigne. I remember I had to be interviewed to be a part of their clique.
Oh my, of course.
Ill,
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
And all they asked me was about Avril. Of
Like
course, he had to be
what?
interviewed into a friend group. And they were just like, "Do you love Avril?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah." And they're like, "What CDs do you have of her?" And I was like, "I have all her CDs, even the one like complicated EP that was only 2 songs of just complicated twice, but I had
Wow.
it."
Was it like different? Like, did she remix Complicated or
No, I
something?
don't know why we wasted money on that.
Love it. Matt, wow. Throwback to buying CDs. That's really wild. Well,
I
so did they
know.
let you in the friend group?
Yeah, and it wasn't as like cut out to be as like amazing as it actually was. Of
That
course.
tracks. Yeah. Remember when we were in Greece before our Prague study abroad, and that's when this like Avril Lavigne conspiracy reignited in the world?
It has gone through so many ups and downs in the media,
For sure.
but I'm sure if you're in the pop culture or if you're interested in any sort of pop culture, you've heard of this conspiracy theory.
For sure.
And it's that Avril has been dead since her album of Let Go released, and her body double Melissa has just been living her life and dating Tyga, I guess now.
I think Melissa is losing that she has to date Tyga. So,
Yeah,
do
I'd rather
you,
be dead.
yeah, do you believe, like, do you think it's plausible? And basically, the proof around it is like their handwriting is different, her facial structure has changed a bit. What else? Like, she wrote Melissa on her hand one time. Like, what are your thoughts around this conspiracy?
Okay, I 100% don't believe it
Okay.
because even today, I was just like, my face shape has really
Yeah,
changed from like 2 years ago. Even just like me switching from a side part to a middle part has really changed my
agreed.
look. And like your face shape does change from when you were young, which was when she first
Yeah,
started recording Complicated and the album Let Go, to like where she is now. Like your style changes. Another, I think, rumor or another reason why they were like, oh, she's been replaced is like she started being more girly and having blonde hair and curling her hair, and historically she
yeah,
was known for having this like straight brunette hair. Styles change. I do not want to
totally.
be tied to my style from high school,
Yeah.
so it like makes a lot of sense. The only thing that I'm like, this is weird, is why does she have Melissa written on her hand? And I did some digging and I was like, who is Melissa? I could not figure out who Melissa is. And like, it's not even confirmed that Melissa exists. Like, Melissa exists
Yeah.
solely because of this rumor. So there was no like confirmation that there was even a body double ever named Melissa for Avril.
Yeah, it's like the chicken and the egg where it's like, did Avril write Melissa on her hand because she heard these rumors and thought it was funny? Or did she write Melissa and then everyone like created this theory?
Yeah, and like I kind of went on a deep rabbit hole of trying to understand why conspiracy theories even exist. It's because we're all bored.
Yeah.
We're all bored and we have like nothing to do. Usually like conspiracies come out because of some like tragic incident when there's like no explanation and people are just like looking for
Yeah.
explanations, which we'll kind of get into in today's topic. But this is just for funsies. Like, what is so nothing happened to Avril? She's alive. So why are we like making this shit up? We're just actually all bored.
That Brazilian blogger just woke up one day and was like, let me start a conspiracy that will rock the pop culture world.
I think she even had to like update her blog and was like, nothing is confirmed because everyone was just taking it all a little too serious. It's like
Of course.
she probably got some like cease and desist from Avril's legal team. But like people are so willing to believe
Yeah.
conspiracy theories. Like us as humans are just, I think, wired to believe just the wildest rumors. Remember when we were bored during the pandemic and this was peak like Brittany in her peak like just dancing around her
Yeah.
apartment phase.
Yes, there were so
And
many people making up crazy. They're saying like she wrote this emoji and that means that. And it's like, no, I think she just like keyboard smashed on emojis.
no, but remember when, because we were so bored, we were just investigating as well. And
Oh
we
yeah,
were
yeah,
like,
yeah.
zoom in into this photo. Can you see what they're saying? I'm just like, I can't see it. But everyone else was saying that they could see it. So
Yeah, I couldn't see it
I'm
either,
just,
which is why I sent it to you to be like, do you see it? Because I don't.
but like everyone's just so willing to believe it and like add fuel to the fire that like what was just a joke just becomes such like a credible
Yeah.
conspiracy theory.
Yeah. It's pretty wild. I think it is fun for sure. I love a good conspiracy, but it's like fun as a joke, not as like I truly am invested in this conspiracy, which I think a lot of people are invested in conspiracies, which is a little scary.
Well, we have one conspiracy that actually may be the like biggest or like
Yeah.
has the most, it's rooted in the most like this actually happened type of situation. And that is the quote unquote disappearance of MH370. And I say quote unquote because there are theories that the people are still out there and are hostages in some foreign country. So TBD where they actually are, but why are we talking about this today?
Well, Netflix just released a 3 episode docuseries on like the whole situation, and it was very compelling. And I have been thinking about it nonstop since I watched it.
It's compelling because of acting. I remember how they reenacted certain scenes, and I'm just like, man, this is good acting.
When they were reenacting things, I was like, oh, that could happen. Like that makes sense. I think also what was compelling about it is that the journalists who were like telling their conspiracy theories were so confident in them. And so anytime they were saying the theory, I was like, yeah, that does make sense. That could work. And then 5 minutes later, they would dispel it somehow, like some other person would dispel it. And you'd be like, okay, yeah, that was dumb.
My issue with this whole thing is that like no one is giving me the full picture. When
Yeah.
they explain each theory, they give you just like 5 pieces of information that prove it. But then like you're not given the like 20 pieces of information that just disproves their theory. And so
Yeah.
in that like 10 minutes that they're explaining it, you're like, this is it. This is why.
Exactly. Exactly. They did it in a way that really makes you believe the situation at hand for like a good few minutes until they're like, just kidding. Joke's on you.
Just really quickly, MH370 was leaving from Malaysia and it was a Boeing 777, which is a pretty big plane with like
Very big.
2,000 plus passengers, 12 crew members, and they were on their way to Beijing. So it's not really a super long flight. The flight was like in the middle of the night. And what happened was on their way to Beijing when they were leaving the like airspace controlled by Malaysia, the Malaysian government suddenly just like lost complete contact of the plane, and no other like airspaces actually just had signal with the plane.
Yeah.
And the plane essentially just like disappeared from the sky.
Yeah. And then, like a couple days later after the incident, they said that the plane had actually turned around, gone over Malaysia again, and then basically went like south in the earth, like God knows where.
And is that like actually proven data that they turned around? Like that's not disproven? Because I also was a little unsure about that piece.
Yeah, I haven't seen it be disproven yet, like the path. And the reason they think that it went south is because there was like this Inmarsat data from the plane that was pinging it. And so, like, whatever person from that company did this whole analysis of where is the plane, like, where are the pings? And he basically said, okay, it either went south or north. And then whatever math he did said it went south. So I guess if we believe that the data is accurate, then it is backed by data. I don't know.
Yeah. So this track has sparked a ton of conspiracy theories. In the Netflix docuseries, they kind of highlight three main theories, and we are just gonna talk about the three.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the first theory?
So the first theory is that the pilot hijacked the plane basically, and like in an attempt to commit suicide, just flew the plane south, I guess, until it landed. And that is quickly disproven because
Quickly disproven.
yeah, because the plane was to go that far down south based on the Inmarsat data, he would have had to fly the plane 7 hours after it went off the radar. So it's like, if you wanted to commit suicide, why would you just keep flying the plane? Like everyone from Malaysia Air, like the crew and other pilots said he was like one of the best pilots, such a good guy, which I know that isn't always like an indicator that this guy didn't do it, but they ransacked his house and they did not find anything conclusive. So it's like, okay, if you're going to do something of this magnitude, somewhere you planned for it. And if you haven't found that, then it's not him.
Okay, the thing is, the one other piece of info that the authorities released like 2 weeks after this whole thing happened was that, oh, he flew a flight simulator in his basement that was somewhat similar route to like how MH370 came about, but it's like it's actually not the same route.
It's actually pretty different.
Yeah, and the fact that it was released like weeks later just kind of shows that the authorities kind of released it to get people like off their back, to just give them breadcrumbs, to give them something like a person to like direct their hate towards, which really sucks for the pilot. Other reasons really why people were like saying it's the pilot is because he had connections to this like opposing political party. He was wildly unhappy in his marriage. I was like reading up on this, and someone even was saying how like there were reports that his wife and kids actually moved out of the house like the day right before the plane left, that their marriage was rocky. Also, the funniest thing is that they were like, he had no social plans post the flight that he was flying. And I'm like, I have no social plans post today. Does that mean I'm about to commit mass suicide murder? Like,
yeah,
it makes like people are actually grasping for straws here.
Yeah, like, those things could have happened, but like for you to say this marital dispute led to you killing upwards of 200 people is a very large leap, like extremely large leap.
Yeah, I think like this theory is just a funsies theory that no one actually believes, but it's out there because that was like one of the first. I mean, it is natural to just suspect the pilot because there's actually quite a few like pilot suicide murders in the past, which is scary to think about.
Yeah. And the like journalist who basically came up with this theory was so confident. But when they do the reenactment, you're like, wow, he had to do a lot of things to be able to like make this happen. So immediately you should have thought like, this doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, and also like he would have flown rogue for such a long period of time.
Yeah. Okay. What was conspiracy two?
So, conspiracy two was basically that the Russians, there were apparently like three Russian passengers that were on the plane, and they had hijacked the plane and flew it north. Um, which is funny because like the way that this theory started was that they're like wondering if the Russian government is involved with this, as they were with this other like MH plane that got shut down
Yeah.
or shot down, I think like 4 months later, which is scary to think
Yeah.
about. So I can see why they also suspected the Russian government, but the way that they tied it to the plane was like there were three passengers that were Russian. And they were all sitting like within the vicinity of, what was it? What were they sitting
The
in the vicinity of?
electronics bay, like the
Yes.
basically brain of the plane.
And I'm just like, everyone can be tied back to Russia.
Yeah, that was like the wildest because there was no motive that anyone could like pinpoint, which obviously, like, if Russia had a motive, they would probably keep it pretty under wraps and whatever. But this is a
Yeah.
civilian plane, so it's confusing.
I doubt Russia has a motive for everything. Like,
Yeah.
let's just be honest. But like in this instance, I really don't think that they had a very specific motive tied to the plane. As you said, it was a civilian plane. And also just like the trajectory of the plane. Like I truly kind of believe that it did fly south towards the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
So the fact that like based on this theory, they flew it north towards Kazakhstan, there's just no proof of that.
Yeah. And like if they had flown it north, I think it would have been much more obvious, right? Like you would have heard something, like they would have found something in the desert. Like that's an easily disproven theory because you could just go to Kazakhstan and see that there's no plane there.
Okay, but there's like also no plane in the ocean
True.
too ish. Like that is my
Ish.
biggest like what is this? This is really weird because
Exactly.
if the plane actually disappeared in the Indian Ocean, I would expect that there would be more wreckage.
Mm-hmm.
And like for those who haven't watched the film or read into this, there were a few pieces discovered. One of which I think only one was like truly confirmed
It was very
ish.
loosely confirmed.
Yeah.
So they found like a plane fin. Is that what it looked like to you? I couldn't
Yeah.
tell. And then a bunch of like small pieces that they say is like the plane. But on the fin, only one part of the serial numbers matched the ones on the actual plane. So I think that's like such a stretch to say that it's from the
And
plane.
like for me, the one thing that I'm just like, why is there no data about this? Is like, where are the other parts of the plane? And there's just a lot of hypotheses that like the plane did basically a nosedive vertical into the ocean. And that's the only reason why there aren't any more pieces of the plane found. Because if they like belly flopped or like crash into the ocean at any other degree, there would be more wreckage. So the fact that we haven't found more wreckage means that it was vertical, which I think is very difficult to crash into the ocean in like a straight line.
Yeah, wouldn't you like going down into the ocean, like naturally the ocean would kind of tilt you? I don't understand physics. So
the fact that like there aren't like we don't know where the plane is actually. We literally have not found the wreckage of the plane is just creepy in itself.
Yeah. One thing that is really funny is like that guy Blaine, and they say that he's just an adventurer. That's his like title in the Netflix docuseries.
But he kind of is.
Yeah,
like,
he kind of is.
He's not related to any official investigation. He just one day like bought a ticket and was like, I'm gonna go find some pieces of the plane. And he did. He found like multiple pieces of the plane. And I'm just like, is this easy to do?
Is it confirmed that those are like actually from the plane though? So
No.
the guy who like came up with this Russia theory was like Blaine is connected to Russia. He could be planting the pieces and then finding them. And like him being connected to Russia is like a stretch, but it is really wild that there are so many countries who are actively searching for this plane like for years and they found nothing, but then this one guy finds it when he's basically like, if you look at the ocean patterns or something, it would have ended up here. Well, why didn't any other country's search team
Yeah.
do that? That's why I'm just like, this is very sus.
Well, also like his connection to Russia is so funny because it was like his old business partner from years back was Russian.
Yeah. It's really funny. And they found it on like LinkedIn or something, which I was like, this sucks.
Yeah, actually, I could find a lot of stuff on LinkedIn.
Totally. You can make anything tie. Like if you believe it, if you go in with a theory, you can figure out a way to say like, oh, this theory is right because of these random things.
The thing is that in this whole saga of the MH370 plane disappearance, nothing is conclusive.
Yeah.
Nothing is like definitively conclusive, which like as I was watching this, I was like, this is just like audit. You know how like no one wants to get sued?
Yeah.
So everyone's just like, maybe this
Yeah,
is
yeah.
kind of how we feel. Like this is the exact thing. Like no one wants to definitively say something in case like something comes out and they're sued.
Yeah, they're all like, excuse me, this is alleged.
Yeah, much like our podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and then what's the third conspiracy?
The third is that the US are involved because, of course, the US is always involved. And the theory is that we headed still directly to Beijing, but they
Mm-hmm.
were intercepted by like two US military planes that were trying to intercept this unknown piece of like intelligence or like this cargo that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't tracked in the actual cargo manifest. And they didn't want the cargo arriving in Beijing and the plane wouldn't like turn around or something. And so they shot it down.
Yeah. What's wild about that then is they basically would have had to convince Malaysia, convince the like tracking data people from Britain and like a million other people that the plane did turn around,
Yeah.
which I don't know. It seems also really wild for the US to care enough about whatever thing that was on this plane to kill a bunch of people. And also, were there any US citizens on that plane? I don't
There
know that they
were,
ever said.
I think it was mostly like Chinese citizens.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think cover up is the most plausible conspiracy. Do I think the US
Something is covered up. Yeah.
Yeah, do I think it's like this US theory? Who knows? But I think it is like a very grand scale cover up of like one or two countries, but not all of them, because the likelihood that every country is coming together on this one issue to collude is impossible.
I will say when I was watching the docu-series, I was like, this is bringing together a lot of people from different cultures. Like
Yeah.
the surviving family members
Hmm.
are from different cultures. Everyone's mad, but they
Yeah.
don't know who to be mad
Yeah.
at, which is kind of funny, but like scary at the same
Very
time. It's a
scary.
lot of people. It's a
Yeah.
lot of people that just up and disappeared.
Yeah. I think the Malaysian government also like really botched things with how they portrayed stuff in the media that caused a lot more confusion, which also added to everyone like being so invested in the situation, right? Naturally, if someone is being confusing, you're like, wait. Okay, now I'm interested.
Yeah. It's nice because like they really can't say anything definitively.
Yeah.
And so naturally, these conspiracy theories just pop up. All right, what do you think happened?
Oh my God. I
Because as we were talking about these three conspiracy theories, I'm just like, I don't believe any of
Yeah,
these.
I don't believe any of them. I do believe the data, but I think maybe like the plane actually went down earlier and maybe it was like a malfunction of sorts. Like, I don't really know how it can malfunction like that, but it was a malfunction of sorts. And so the plane is just not in the search area and is actually like much closer to the countries. But if that was the case, then we would find way more plane pieces. So that's also confusing. I actually just have no fucking idea.
I was also thinking there must have been some plane malfunction where they're like unable to communicate, or like
Yeah.
they're unable to really see where they're flying towards. And that may like the turnaround kind of maybe explains that they were maybe trying to get back to the airspace that they took off from.
Yeah.
But what just like really baffles me is where are the rest of the plane pieces?
Yeah.
I guess like, is it so hard to look into the ocean and find pieces? I guess.
Yeah.
The ocean is rather large and deep,
The
but
ocean
like,
is very large and deep. But you would assume that the plane fell apart in some capacity and like naturally will float up and kind of float into a beach area of some sort.
yeah, like the lack of pieces that have been discovered is really baffling, or they have been discovered and
Yeah.
the government is not telling us anything.
Yeah. Man, it's a very like scary one just because like this
This
plane
happened in 2014.
disappeared. Yeah, like I don't know. The whole time I was watching this, I was just thinking about Manifest.
I know. I knew you would. Okay, for those who don't know what Manifest is, what is like the or the plot there?
Okay, yeah, the premise of the show Manifest, which I don't know what network it was on first, but then Netflix bought it and like basically continued it, was that this plane from Jamaica to New York essentially disappeared off of the face of the earth and then landed in New York in 5 years. So 5 years later, it landed in New York. And so the people on the plane just thought they were on a normal plane trip. Like to them, it was 3 hours. But when they land in New York, it's 5 years later. Everything has changed. Everyone is so confused at what happened. And then somehow, like while they were on this trip, they got this like supernatural ability and they have like callings of sorts that basically leads them to do whatever the calling like wants. And so that's like pretty much the show. But the premise is very engaging for me.
I bet they were like the directors or producers were inspired
I'm
by what
sure.
happened to MH370.
Yeah.
It's also been 5 years and they haven't reappeared, so I'm not
Yeah.
sure that that's actually what's going to happen for the MH370 passengers. But one thing that I was kind of like, it made me think of was a Serial and how like they use the
Mm,
tower data to
yeah.
really pinpoint where they were. And it was later revealed that like the data is not really accurate. Like you can't really pinpoint based off of like what we had back then. And I almost feel like it's eerily similar to like what's going to happen a few years later, where like they're going to come up with some wild like accusation that the plane actually went this way
Yeah.
because the original like satellite data that we use actually isn't accurate at all.
Yeah. That's actually such a good comparison. And I think that's true. Or like I could believe that because they also at the beginning said it could have gone north or it could have gone south.
Which
So
is like, there's only 4 directions
yeah,
out here: northeast, southwest. Can you like,
exactly.
how much did you narrow it down?
Exactly. The fact that they weren't immediately like, okay, the plane went this way because of the signal is makes it so murky. It makes it very like guess and check, which I don't love.
And it's also like, it's 2014. How do we lose a big ass
Yeah.
plane?
Man, what a like crazy. Like honestly, I hope for those people that they're dead.
Yeah. I hope for their like relatives too, that like, so that they can grieve
Yeah.
and move on.
Yeah, and like imagine any other situation besides like them have dying is like so gruesome and like difficult to
Yeah.
imagine. I hope that they're not still suffering.
Or they're just flying and are developing supernatural powers.
Maybe like aliens took over the ship and like took them to a different planet.
Yeah.
Oh, probably
I
a
think
better
that
one.
is, yeah. That is the theory that I believe the most.
Yeah, like honestly, they're winning, leaving Earth. This planet is imploding from the inside out.
Okay, but You had a coworker who flew on Malaysian
Oh
Airlines
yeah.
recently, right? Is
Yeah.
he still alive?
Yeah, he's still alive. When I was watching the documentary, I all of a sudden thought about him and I was like, I have not heard from him in a couple of days, which isn't like super unusual, but kind of unusual. So I was like, excuse me, are you alive? And luckily he was like, yeah, yeah, I'm alive. And I was like, great.
After watching the docuseries, does it change how you feel about traveling on planes?
Man, I don't know. I don't really think so. Mostly because I've traveled a million times since, and it is like such a freak accident. So it's like,
Yeah.
if this happens to me, like it was my time.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I'm not going to stop like traveling or being worried about it if it's not something that directly has happened to me. Like I don't personally have like PTSD from a flying situation, so I'm not going to develop one because of a docu-series. Like honestly, I was watching it as if it was a movie, unless like this actually happened. Like I was pretty removed from thinking like this is reality.
You and I are pretty comfortable on flights because I know there are people
Yeah.
who get like anxious on flights, but the second turbulence hits us, we're just like out and
Yeah.
asleep. Like that actually puts us to sleep, which is scary because I've seen in the news recently of like certain planes hitting really
Yeah.
heavy turbulence. And it's actually like, whoa, this is really dangerous. The fact that it's like 2023 and flying is still somewhat dangerous is
Yeah.
really mind-boggling to me. But I'm just gonna be a little delulu in this instance
Yeah.
because like
You
you
have
gotta
to
do what
be.
you gotta do.
Exactly.
Well, for our audience members, check out the docu-series
Mhm.
MH370. Highly recommend. It's really a quick watch and
Yeah.
let us know your thoughts.
Thanks so much for listening. You can follow us on all social media at Clown Vibes Podcast or email us at clownvibespodcast@gmail.com.
And if you enjoy our show and want to support us, please like, subscribe, and give us a rating and review. That's it for today. Bye,
Bye,
clowns.
clowns.